Welcome to the Pigskins and Politics Podcast, the only podcast that combines two topics that go together like Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. My name is Brian McFadden. Welcome to the PPP. You are listening to the football episode. Please make sure to stick around for the politics chat, which will drop separately in a couple days. Really exciting show for you today. This is the second week that we will be on YouTube. So anyone who managed to check us out last week, we were going to be looking at our beautiful / ugly mugs every week in addition to hearing us. So really excited to bring that forward. But we're going to jump right into getting to the guests. But we have a special announcement first. So Mr. Will Southern, this is going to sound like a proposal, which is not how I'm intending it to come off. Will you officially be my co-host? Nice. You didn't even make me. I don't even have to get down on a knee. So yes, Will Southern. After being just the constant recurring,
if you could
nagging, that's too late for that, man. You said yes. We are. You're locked in. I got it on video.
Right. That always stops after marriage, anyways.
Yeah, we have to keep the relationship hot and fresh, right? So we're just gonna leave that tease out there. But yes, Will is the official co-host. It was inevitable. It was a matter of time. He played hard to get. He really didn't. He was just coming on every single show. He actually played pretty easy to get. But how you doing, Will? You ready for a big supersized episode today?
Your like beginning show analogies always screw me up in my brain because I have a very scientific brain, and you're like two things that go together like Deshaun and the Texans, and I'm like, yeah, they go together. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not the point. The point is that they don't, and it's just like every week you just throw something out, and it doesn't make sense to me, and it hurts my head.
And that's when I know I found a good comparison.
I'm good, man. It was a weekend of highs and lows, but actually alternated. So it was lows and then highs, which is better.
It built up better.
So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. But my boy is well on his way.
God, I'm ready. I'm ready for Brady to be out of the playoffs, so I can stop hearing from you about Tom Brady. So we're gonna get to that.
Listen, I tweeted this. I tweeted this. I just want to say my tweet. If Tom Brady vanquishes Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers en route to a Super Bowl over Patrick Mahomes in his first year on a new team, in his first year in the NFC, I will be absolutely insufferable.
And that is the moment I will be looking for a new co-host. So if you're listening and you're interested in being on the Pigskins and Politics podcast, if Tom Brady and the Bucs win the Super Bowl, please reach out. Let's bring on the next big introduction. We got multiple introductions in this episode. So we have a producer. Imagine that. The Pigskins and Politics podcast has brought on a producer. So I want to welcome Mr. Anthony Weiner, the new producer of the PPP. How you doing, dude?
Hey, guys. I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited to get started.
Producer.
The PPP producer. So as you can see, sporting that Lions hat, why don't you give a little intro about yourself, man? Tell the people what you're all about.
Yeah, so I am from Michigan, so I'm a Detroit Lions fan, and I moved over to California. I'm one of the 6 Detroit Lions fans in Los Angeles, so that's a lot of fun.
You got your own fan club there. Nice.
Yeah, we have like a little group.
No, go ahead.
No, we all go out and celebrate the Lions games together, even if we win or lose.
Is it called the Lions Den?
So there's only 6 of you, so basically you have like a booth at a bar. Oh, yeah. It's not like a Lions bar. You get
it's a table.
It's a kid's table. Well, we're super thrilled to have you. Apologies that you're a Lions fan, but hey, you got a new coach, new regime. It's looking up. So super excited to have you on the PPP as our producer. And finally, the person I'm most excited about to introduce. Everybody knows how big of a Dolphins fan I am, and this is something I booked a while ago before he became even bigger, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But we're going to welcome Ian Berger, a.k.a. Big E, 2020 #1 Miami Dolphins fan. That's not like a self-given title. He was voted the #1 Miami Dolphins fan, and on top of that, he is now a top 3 finalist for the NFL's Fan of the Year. Big E, welcome to the PPP. How you doing?
Hey, Brian. Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And I want to make sure I clarify something. I never consider myself the #1 Dolphins fan. I just happen to be selected this year as the Fan of the Year, like you said, going to the Super Bowl as the top 3. But I give a lot of credit to really a lot of the fans out there. And there are some fans that have a heck of a lot more stuff than I do behind me, and a lot of fans that do a lot more during games than I do. So I think I'm just one of many diehard Dolphins fans, and I think I share this with all those diehards that have been watching pretty much their whole lives waiting for us to get back to the Super Bowl.
God, your poor spirit just must be just decimated. Wait, but I have a question. So how does one become like a number one fan? Like, what do you have to do other than just like? So like I don't know. So I just assume it means you have a bunch of stuff and you post a lot on Twitter. Like, what does it actually mean to be a number one fan?
Yeah, and I think what helped me become the NFL Fan of the Year this year was because you couldn't really be out in groups together, so a lot of the real good fans, some that you would recognize, Dolphinatic, Manny, who puts all of his face paint on. You got the big Papa Pump you always see at the games. Well,
Big Papa Pump.
He's there at all the games, pumping everybody up, and
that's what they used to call me in high school.
Well, can't imagine why.
You're not able to do anything together as groups, right? Because of the pandemic. So this year I spent a lot of time. I had more time because I was able to work from home for 6 months, and I created a couple of real cool videos. I'm what you call a very optimistic Miami Dolphins fan. I'm a very, very positive influence on social media. And I think a lot of people, they recognize that and they appreciated that. So, not to mention I created this cool video the night before Tua, where I got 28 Dolphins fans from around the world actually that participated in it. And it was like, it's a cool little poem, but they all got involved. And I think that's the cool thing, trying to get everybody involved. And I found out recently too, it's not just here in the United States. I mean, I did something this weekend where I found that 30% of my followers are in Florida. The next highest group, I have 5% of my followers are from the UK. So we have a huge
Same for us.
fan.
Yeah. Actually, Canada's number 2 now for us, Will, but UK is third after last week.
It's actually insane. I'm very impressed.
Well, weren't they talking about shipping the Jaguars over there for a while?
And I could see that still being a possibility. Right? Yeah. I want to talk about how I came across Big E. So this will kind of help you understand. I'm new to Twitter. I'm 40 years old. I never did the Twitter thing. Of course, I created this podcast, and Twitter is an obvious place
outlet
to kind of
get it,
outlet to get it out there and find more fans. But I'm also a Dolphins fan, so I wanted to see who else was on. It took me like a day before everybody's like, Big E, tagging Big E. And I'm like, who is this dude? Mr. Positivity. I loved your post. I checked out your YouTube. You have your own.
Oh my God, you guys are like positivity bros. Like I don't know if you've listened to this podcast, but Brian on a weekly basis is like, I believe in Tua. I believe in what Brian Flores is doing.
Well, exactly.
It's just nauseating. But
I see the positivity. It's genuine. I can, as a lifelong Dolphins fan, we have to admit that we've had fair weather fans over the years. It's a spot where people love to jump on when it's doing well, but to see somebody who's always stuck through it, we've been on a little bit of a downfall since '99 and Marino retired. So it's just super inspired. Really happy to have you on, and we're going to hear more from you specifically on where the Dolphins sit right now, which, spoiler alert, it's in a good place. But let's go ahead and jump into some NFL news. So we're going to start with the main news of the day, and that's the various head coaching dominoes that are finally starting to fall into place. We're going to start with one that is near and dear to Will's heart. As a former Florida Gator, Urban Meyer finally has been lured to the NFL and has been named the head coach at the Jacksonville Jaguars. For those who are not familiar, I mean, people have heard of the name, but if you're not familiar with his track record, he's been a successful head coach at every single stop in college football. Started at Bowling Green, then went to Utah, where he coached Alex Smith, then went to Florida, where he won 2 national championships, then went to Ohio State, where he won a national championship. The guy is a winner, never coached in the NFL in any level. Will, what are your thoughts on how Meyer, what is his outlook as a head coach of the Jaguars right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole world that cares about these kind of things is looking at that and going, I want to see that. You know what I mean? Like, it was the one thing, like, Saban, as you know, dipped his toes in the NFL.
Oh, don't remind us.
Jump back into the warmth of college football.
Going back to Alabama. All right.
Repeatedly.
Yeah. So anyway, and Meyer, I mean, once he lost my boy at Florida, he kind of was like, nope, heart attack, or whatever, and he took off, and then Ohio State, he started to get into some, and then he was done there too. So it remains to be seen. Like I'm excited about it because the Jaguars are just right down the road. They got a ton of draft capital. They got a cool stadium. Have you ever seen the Jag State? It's got a pool in it that you can go like hang out in as a fan. It's like the coolest. You ever seen that? It's like the coolest thing. There's a pool. Anyway, they have cool uniform. I mean, it's a franchise you want to do well, right? But I mean, it remains to be seen. I saw on Twitter they were starting to catch some flack for Meyer's Ohio State situation. He's been very focused on winning and very not focused on like the politics of college football, if you want to say it that way. But runs a spread offense. I mean, what is that going to look like in the NFL? Like, is Trevor Lawrence that guy?
And is there an outside chance he does Justin Fields because of the Ohio State Ryan Day
maybe
connection? Probably not.
Maybe. But... I mean, you could trade back and get a lot of capital, right, and still grab Fields. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it remains to be seen what kind of offense he's going to have. They don't have like a Percy Harvin, or somebody like that. So we'll see, man. But I'm excited about it.
Ian, do you have any thoughts? How do you think Meyer might do?
It's interesting because there are a bunch of coaches who go from college to the National Football League, and I would say more times than not, they don't have the same level of success that they had in college. And I think part of that is obviously you're dealing with a free agency situation. You're dealing with cap space situation where in college it's about, how can you lure the best recruits to your team.
It's about putting money in McDonald's.
Yeah, French fries. I saw that today. Very interesting. So I think that's going to be a challenge that he has. But when he gets that quarterback, if it is Trevor, if it is Fields, whoever it is, I think it'll help him to have that college mentality with a successful college quarterback that you put in place there. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm glad that Jacksonville is not in the AFC East. Because I definitely, that was one of the things throughout this season that
you'd have an easier shot to win.
We didn't want the Jets to get Trevor Lawrence, so hopefully you guys are going to take care of that for us. So
thank you, Gase. You helped us once at the end.
only once.
That's it. But that's all we have.
But I mean, that's a different topic. I don't know that that's a foregone conclusion either. Like the Jets and what they do and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be interesting.
Well, let's talk about that next. And I want to start with you on this one, Biggie, because obviously we are fans of the Dolphins in the AFC East. The New York Jets hired Robert Saleh, who was the defensive coordinator in San Francisco. Seems like a slam dunk pick. I mean, I even saw him in his Jets hoodie today, and he looked like he belonged at MetLife Stadium. He looked like
You were crushing on him in his hoodie.
I think everybody.
You're
was,
like, I just want to put. Brian on Twitter goes, I just want to throw that out there. He was made for that.
I'm just
hoodie.
saying. I lived in New York City for 13 years.
Okay.
I went to every single Jets Dolphins game. That was my chance to see the Dolphins in person. So I sat around so many guys in Jets hoodies with shaved heads from Brooklyn and the Bronx, and Saleh that's what I meant. Is that he just looked like he fit in? Yeah, I mean he wears the hoodie well. What can I say? But yeah. So what are your thoughts on that hire for Saleh in New York, Ian?
First of all, I think he'll kick my butt because he is a very well built individual.
He is Diesel.
Oh my God, there is too much crushing on Robert Saleh on this podcast.
But with that being said, I'd have Coach Flores on my side, and to see the two of them go at it with each other. I don't know how that would work. But on a more serious note, I think. Unfortunately, I think it's a really good hire for the Jets. I think it's the total opposite to Adam Gase. I think you have somebody who shows so much passion on the sidelines that players love to see that. And Brian, you'll probably remember this. It was similar to when we had Dan Campbell, for the Dolphins, and he showed so much emotion, and the players just really responded to that.
Anthony, our producer, just got excited.
Yeah, exactly, and he should
yes.
Because I am really high on Dan Campbell because I think he really. It's one thing to be able to coach because you're knowledgeable, but it's another thing to be able to coach and really get all of your players to buy in and all of your players to see that you are excited about what they're doing. And he's the anti-Bill Belichick, I guess you can say. And he's again opposite of Adam Gase. I think they made a really good hire. I think he's a defensive coach, but I think he can find the right guys to help him. I think he took the offensive coordinator from
Mike
San
LaFleur,
Francisco with him. Yes.
Who is Matt LaFleur's brother. will now be the
help.
OC for the
it's
Jets.
helpful for
Yeah.
him.
I think you and I are used to the Jets bungling this, right? Unfortunately, I got to agree with you. I don't think they bungled this. And obviously, you've got Belichick there. Flores has been fantastic. Sean McDermott in Buffalo. Now Saleh, that is one tough.
I mean, you still have to have tools on offense, right? So let's talk about, number one, big fan of the guy. Like the San Francisco defensive players could not rave enough about him. And I remember Richard Sherman, when he got passed up last cycle, said like, that was just unfair. Like the dude deserved to be a head coach, and he would have been a head coach. So it was a matter of time for him to get hired. And I agree with you. I mean, when you look at some of these other hires, you're like, Saleh, to me, if Urban Meyer aside, that was kind of a different thing, right? Like the Jags, that was a market-based thing. Like that was just, they wanted Urban Meyer, and then they took some Rooney Rule flack for that too. But whatever. Him aside, I think Saleh was probably like the premier pick for like head coaching candidates, other than Eric Bieniemy, who I also really like and will probably get a job. But you got to look at tools. So what does he have, right? He's got a running back situation. He's got a fossil running the ball in Frank Gore, who's like older than
Hall
me.
Of Fame fossil,
and he's like
a fossil nonetheless.
Whose son might be in the NFL by the time he retires too.
That
by the
would
way.
be crazy. Yeah.
Did you see? And let me go back to the tools thing for a second, but I'm gonna side note. So Tom Brady, Antoine Winfield Jr. caused a turnover in that game. That Brady played with Anton Winfield Sr. back in the day.
Yeah.
It's
Brady's going to be in the NFL when my son's there. So 20 years from now.
Yeah, Brady's going to be winning Super Bowls when I'm dead. But so I mean, you got to look at tools, right? Like I've said all year, the Jets defense was much better than people would think it was. They were not laughable on defense. It kept them in games. But the fact is, for a lot of the year, they were, Crowder was hurt a while. They have Crowder, who was like kind of a sort of a thing in Washington.
Good possession receiver, good slot
guy. They have nothing. So they got Herndon, who they didn't use, which you could argue was just,
that was surprising.
Like a misstep.
I was surprised by that.
But they got Darnold. And Crowder. So it's going to be an interesting draft to see how they can maneuver and what they do, because if they go all in to replace Darnold, you could have Trevor. You could have everybody. You could have Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields.
And they do have extra draft capital from trading away Jamal Adams. They do have an extra first-round pick, so they have some assets that they could go and use some tools with. The main highlight here, at least on paper, is like when they hired Gase, I was laughing. Right? I think Big E probably felt like, okay.
I wrote an article actually for DolphinsTalk.com, which is the site that I write for and that I podcast for. And the article was, "Dear New York Jets fans, here's what you're getting with Adam Gase." And I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. Every one of the items that I talked about happened with Gase over the year and a half, 2 years that he was
him staring at UFOs on his introductory
that
press
part,
conference.
No, but like... getting rid of your favorite players, that was one that I said for sure. Enjoying his sass during the press conferences. It was great at the beginning, but it gets really tiresome as the weeks go on and as you lose more. And then also seeing him, writing plays on the sideline while the defense is on the field, that kind of got you. So all those items.
Wait, he does that?
Oh yeah.
He just like makes up plays and he just gives them to the offense like as you're going along.
Well, he writes them up while the defense is on the field. So he's usually, you'll find him sitting on the sitting next to the quarterback or sitting somewhere while the defense is on the field. So he's never really paying attention to what's going on the defense.
Head coach.
Exactly. And I saw
I think
some
he
talk
might get
about,
a shot though in Seattle, right?
Yeah,
As
that's
an
what I was going to
coordinator.
say.
Yeah,
I saw reports that he's being considered for offensive coordinator of Seattle, which the rest of the NFC West should be pretty happy about. So,
I just wonder if that run game from San Francisco is going to come to New York, because I don't know if that's Shanahan or if that was LaFleur. Because if you think back to Shanahan at the Falcons, that was high flying Matt Ryan down the field. But then he goes to San Francisco, and that was a three-headed beast of Coleman, Mostert, and who's that other cat? They got another one. Anyway, they got like
Jeff
50
Wilson
running backs.
went off at one
and they
point,
use them
yeah.
all. Wilson Jr. Yeah. So I wonder what the Jets offense is going to look like. It might make sense, you know. I mean, you got to put together an offensive line and get like somebody who's not Frank Gore or a couple people, and you know.
I think.
So I guess
the main point is the arrow is pointing up. You know, at least
Correct.
at this point, and you never know. There's always hope with a new hire, unless it's Adam Gase.
See, the thing I'm excited about looking at offenses and segueing into our next topic is I wonder who the Falcons are going to give the ball to 30 times a game coming from Tennessee.
So let's jump right into that next head coaching announcement. That is that the Atlanta Falcons, as Will alluded to, hired Arthur Smith, who was the offensive coordinator the past few years for the Tennessee Titans, and obviously relied heavily on Derrick Henry and play action. I think he did a great job with Tannehill, at least from what we saw. Certainly a big improvement over his time with Gase and the Dolphins. But Will, let's start with you there. Do you think because the Falcons don't have, obviously Gurley is a shell of what he used to be, because they don't have that stud Derrick Henry type behemoth in the backfield, that Smith's office won't work there?
I mean, I don't know. You know, I mean, Tannehill was damn successful. You know, I mean, he had AJ Brown, but he's got a lot of weapons. I mean, they got Ridley, who you could argue is more effective for the Falcons than
Julio's
Julio.
injured a lot this year too.
I mean, but even before this year, like Julio would come off the field on third down a lot. You know what I mean? And like, I'm not taking anything away from Julio. I know there's a lot of Julio. I'm going to catch a lot of crap for that. There's a lot of Falcons fans out there and they think Julio is like football Jesus, but he's good for sure. But Ridley has just been a steal in like the draft for them, you know. And then they got Hurst now. Well, great pick there. So I don't know. You know, I mean, maybe they go out and they get like a legit running back. I mean, I don't think. What is it, Ito Smith and who else do they have?
And Brian Hill.
Yeah,
Brian Hill.
Yeah, Hill. Oh my God! Every time in DFS, they're like, "Oh, the Falcons running back's hurt. It's Brian Hill week." It's never Brian Hill week. That's a hot tip. It's never Brian Hill week. So I don't know. You know, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I think they should use Hurst more. You know, and what they do there. But like I said, I mean, they don't have a Henry where you can just get up by a touchdown and then just slam that guy into the line 30 times.
They do have Matt Ryan.
Watch him finally
I know
break
that
one.
he is aging, but he's still a top quarterback in the league. And if you get a better offensive mind, like Arthur Smith has shown to be, I think, in Tennessee, then I see some options there. Do you any take on this, Ian?
You know, the only thing I would add is that, as you mentioned, you know, I think Matt Ryan is not getting any younger. You know, and I think also Julio Jones is not getting any younger. As we saw, he was injured a lot this season, a lot more than he has his entire career. And I think, you know, for me, fortunately, fantasy football has allowed me to kind of keep track of all these players from all the other teams. And I think I picked up Matt Ryan at some point, and then he kind of killed me like one of the weeks when I really needed him, you know. But last season I had Matt Ryan, and he did tremendous. He did very well for me for a couple of weeks. So I think looking at them, I think Arthur Smith is going to have a challenge because he has an aging quarterback. He has an aging, you know, star wide receiver, and some tough decisions are going to need to be made in the next couple of seasons around what you do with these guys with contracts. Do you replace them? If so, with who? Yeah, it's going to be difficult. And like you said, their running back situation is not anywhere close to what it's like in Tennessee. So he's going to have to really start. There's a lot of things that he's going to have to start over with in order to get to where he wants to go. And you know, I hate to say it, but there might be some pain before they can get back to, you know, to get into the playoffs. And I know they were that whole Super Bowl thing where the Patriots ended up coming back. That was really tough.
Best
Don't
game
remind
I've ever
Will
seen.
of that.
Best game. Listen, for everybody out there, Julian Edelman signed the catch.
No. Oh no!
Yes.
Is he a Patriots fan,
love it.
Brian?
He's a Tom Brady. He's actually not.
All right.
He follows Brady.
I actually
and Gronk.
I mean, listen,
He's a Bucs fan now.
I don't want to dive too deep in it. There are a lot of Pats that I love. Not so much the Pat, but I love Gronk, I love Edelman, and I love Brady. And there's a couple more too. Antonio Brown. So now that they've coalesced together, it's just like
that's
for me, you know, it's just it's amazing. But
sorry, I can't. They've ruined my
talking
last 20 years.
about like bottom bin fantasy quarterbacks that you can pick up. Hot tip. I know we're not talking about this right now, but Anthony's boy Stafford is like a golden goose every year in fantasy because you wouldn't think it, but he is like rock solid for like somebody who nobody picks up, but he's like there for you all the time.
Because this year he got hurt. He got hurt and he was out a couple of games. So, but I agree with you. I've had that situation with him too because usually, well, here's the thing too. You don't expect the Lions to run much, right, Anthony? So usually you've got Stafford having to catch up with yardage and having to, playing from behind. And that's kind of what you look for in a quarterback. You want somebody who's going to be throwing 300 to 400 yards every game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't realize is the Lions' offense under Stafford scored 21-plus points every game this season, even with broken ribs and an injured star receiver. The thought is if your team doesn't succeed, it's the quarterback's fault. But the Lions situation, I think, is the complete opposite. You're talking about the worst defense in the NFL, and Stafford and his injured offense has to chase those points and still manage to score at least 3 touchdowns a game. There's a lot at stake with decision-making and trying to make the right moves, especially with Stafford and Galladay in the conversation.
Right.
I actually had Ty Schalter from 538 as a guest for our Lions deep dive, and he broke down specifically because I asked him, "What do you think what do you think the Lions should do going forward?" This was obviously before they had a coach, and he said his gut instinct is to keep Stafford and build that defense out. And so that he thought they should target that linebacker, defensive line, even cornerback. Basically, every line, the defense on that Lions was one of the worst in the league. So let's talk about Dan Campbell specifically, since we're already on Detroit. It was the presumptive head coach. It's not official yet, but all the reports kind of say that he's going to take that job. Ian, what are your thoughts? I mean, we've already heard it, but expand on you and I love Dan Campbell. I thought he did a fantastic job as interim coach after Philbin was let go. I would have liked to have seen him get a shot. That's how much I was, a fan of him. So how do you think you think this is a good hire then for Detroit?
Yeah, I think it's a great hire for them. I was also, especially now living through the Adam Gase years, I feel like had we retained Dan Campbell and allowed him the opportunity to coach the team, I think we would have had actually a couple of better seasons than what we saw with Adam Gase. Even though, yeah, we did go to the playoffs one season, and we'll be thankful for that. But I think when Dan came in, it was interesting because it was really early on in that season. I want to say it was 2016, maybe it was 2015. I think maybe 2016. And he came in the first game we played against the Tennessee Titans, and we beat the Tennessee Titans. And then we came home and played. Were we home or were we away? Well, we played the Houston Texans, and I think we scored over 40 points in that game against the Houston Texans, and we just killed them. And that was at a time when the Texans were good. They were a good team. I think they were a playoff team at that time.
R.I.P.
So that was kind of like, this guy can do this with this group of players. Now unfortunately, as the season progressed, the players couldn't keep up that momentum, and I think we had a couple key injuries, which always seems to be the case for the Miami Dolphins. So he wasn't retained after that, and that's when Adam Gase was hired. But I truly, thoroughly enjoyed watching him. I loved his press conferences afterwards. He is not going to sugarcoat something. He's going to say it's good or it's not good. But I think what I like a lot about him too is he takes a lot of that personal accountability. If something's not right, he's not pointing the finger at a coordinator. He's not pointing a finger at a player. He says, me as the coach, I need to do better. I need to do better to make sure that our team is better prepared. And I think that's what you want in a head coach. And we didn't see that a couple of times with Coach Gase.
And I do want to, what I've heard and read about Campbell specifically is that he's a player's coach. Like players he's a motivator. They just love to play for him. Kind of like Saleh, what you kind of hear around Saleh. So all signs point to he's going to get this team pumped up. And by all accounts, Matt Patricia was the complete opposite, and these players did not want to play for him. So I do want to hear from you on this, Anthony, as our resident Lions fan. How are you feeling about the presumptive hire of Dan Campbell?
Yeah, I'm excited. I feel like the beginning of the Campbell era is a good sign. Having to fix the aftermath of Patricia, I feel like he'll bring the energy that the team needs to succeed. Patricia seemed to have drained a lot of that energy trying too hard to be like Belichick. I feel like Campbell will bring a new personal, more energetic style to coaching the Detroit Lions. When Bevel was running the team as interim head coach, He even said it was the most fun he's ever had, and most of the players felt the same way. I believe that is what was missing the last 3 years. He brought an okay Dolphins team to 5-7 after being thrown into the position as head coach, and with that kind of talent, I think he's someone who can turn around this organization.
This was the Patricia pen, by the way, that was always in his ear.
Oh, I wondered why you just put. I wonder why you just put 47 pins in your head.
Like, I don't have pins around me. I feel a little left out. You guys are having like a
you know
pin
what
party
though?
in your ears.
Here's
I'm
the
not
thing.
wrong, right, Anthony?
Right?
That's where he always had like a pencil.
It's a pencil.
Right?
It's a pencil, and he did it.
He always
Listen,
had a pencil.
Coming from the Patriots, I loved Matt Patricia. Like I thought he was a slam dunk hire for the Lions. I mean, number one, he's an engineer by trade, I believe. He's got some sort
smart
of
man, very smart.
He's got some. I think he's a mechanical engineer, if I'm not mistaken. So he's
apparently he's lacking the people skills.
So there's that, right? Like I'm an engineer by trade too, right? But I'm not very good at it, so I have some people skills, which is good. Apparently he doesn't, right? I mean, that's the kind of that's that thing, right? Where like as a defensive coordinator, you X's and O's, and that's what you do, right? And apparently nobody has fun on the Patriots. Like Arians even said this week, like Brady's enjoying that he can like be himself now, and that's what Gronk said. So Gronk was like, it's really fun to be able to just be me here, which but anyway,
it's fun. It's not a regime. Right? It's not.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's and I mean, hey, but I mean, you got a good running back, DeAndre Swift. As much as I hate to say this, because he went to Georgia.
He's a Georgia boy.
Yep.
And you mean Galladay. I mean Jones. Jones is one of those guys in fantasy like. 9 times out of 10, he's going to screw you. But that 1 week...
Especially when Galladay is out.
Especially
when Galladay's out.
He's going to go bananas.
So many times I started, Galladay's out, start Marvin Jones, 2 catches for 13 yards. Galladay's out, start Marvin Jones, 3 catches for 21. Like, I never learned. And then, what was it, week 17? He scores like 3 touchdowns. Of course, I'm not starting. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's keep it moving. I'm going to touch on a couple more head coaching things, and then there's one head coaching situation I do want to expand on before we get to the part I'm really looking forward to, and that's Big E on the Dolphins.
Oh my
so
God.
the Chargers hired Brandon Staley, who was the defensive coordinator for the Rams, so he actually stays in L.A. Good for him. He gets a upgrade and doesn't have to move his family or any of that.
Sell his house.
doesn't have to sell his house. Kids get to stay in their virtual school. Oh, I don't know if the Chargers are an upgrade, although Justin Herbert is certainly an upgrade over Jared Goff.
I can't believe that.
And that was the one point I did wanted to bring up is that you've got this young stud that honestly no one saw coming. Everybody saw he had the physical tools, but nobody thought he would be the rookie out of all of them who just wowed everybody. But then they bring on a defensive-minded coach. Granted, he only had 1 year as the DC in LA, but he did a fantastic job. No one can deny, short of the game against Rodgers just now, but that's Rodgers. They were the number 1 defense in the NFL.
Yeah, but,
so
see, the thing is, if you're a good head coach, it shouldn't matter. Like, you should hire an offensive coordinator that's a quarterback whisperer, right? Like, identify talent and bring them on and then get out of their way. I think what happens is we put too much, and even the coach does this, right? Egos get involved. The head coach becomes too involved. They undercut the coordinators. I mean, look at Kansas City. I mean, Bieniemy, right? Look at every
thing right there.
Look at every place, right, that they have. San Francisco's defense was lights out because of Saleh, right? So I think what coaches that have that kind of success need to understand is, and this is just a leadership principle anyway, and I learned this in the Navy very early on, is that like your job as a leader is to remove roadblocks and get out of the way, right? So if you can do that, it doesn't matter. You can be a defensive-minded coach. I mean, to be fair, I mean, coming from Goff, right? I mean, he threw to the defense a lot, so. Like there's that.
Not much you can do there.
So
to your point, Will, I was having a conversation with a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan, which I know we haven't talked about that vacancy yet, but they said when won the Super Bowl. Do you know who the offensive coordinator was at the time? Frank Reich.
Yeah, Frank Reich.
Frank. The Colts guy.
Yep. So what happens after he wins the Super Bowl? He goes to become the head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. And what happens to the offense in Philadelphia?
Worse and worse.
It gets worse and worse and worse. Exactly.
And the Colts become fantastic, by the way.
Exactly.
On both sides of the ball.
So to your point, it's not necessarily the head coach. It's going to be your coordinators that really have that hands-on, or designing plays. It's the coach's philosophy that the coach is kind of bringing down to the different coordinators, but it's the ultimate coordinators to make sure that their players are doing the right thing. So I think when you see a defensive coordinator go into a spot like that, like you said, Herbert is going to be a great quarterback in the league, it looks like already, and which is good and not so good for Dolphins fans. But it's,
there's
it's
like
good
a
for
quasi
him.
rivalry I'm seeing for Chargers.
It's
the
never
Chargers and the
end,
Dolphins? From
Here,
what?
like,
just the
on
quarterbacks.
Twitter. Just the quarterbacks.
Oh, okay.
Like the fact
Because
that they got
Herbert was
and-
taken after Tua.
Yeah.
I'm not. Listen, I'm not going to talk about Tua on this episode at all.
No, you're
Go
not allowed
Tua.
to.
He's the best.
You're
Love him.
muted for this episode. We got two
Love
Dolphins
him.
fans who are going to quiet you. The one thing I'll say about the Eagles situation is apparently, at least who they want, their top candidate is Josh McDaniels. So he's his name. There he is again, right? He actually took the Colts job before Frank Reich and agreed on a deal, and then he's like,
gave it up, reneged on it. Yeah.
Psych. Just kidding.
Wait, hang on. You're the number one Dolphins fan in the country, right?
No,
Officially,
I didn't say
no,
I'm
officially,
right now.
Officially.
Don't be
So
modest.
here is your on the spot
Right now you
challenge. On the spot challenge. What is Tua's first name?
Oh yeah, I don't know how to pronounce the full first name.
Nope, you have been dethroned. I'm sorry.
All right. Can you spell his last name?
Yeah. Tego Voila. Yeah, I can actually.
It's actually spelled Tagovailoa, so
Yeah.
Tagovailoa. So
Boom.
His first name is like 47
name, right?
syllables long, so I'm not even going to try.
Exactly.
But if you could have done that, I would have been extremely impressed. My wife actually grew up in Hawaii. Her dad was a Navy. She's not Samoan or anything, but her dad was in the Navy. So
she would appreciate this. Let me see if I can get it on here.
Ah, nice. Number one
This
surfboard.
was actually sent to me by someone in Hawaii that was very happy about Tua and loved what they see on Twitter. So it's a surfboard, and I keep it close to me because I love it.
By the way, I'm gonna
he's
jump
apparently
out and
a tiny guy.
I'm gonna defend Ian here. I don't think Brian Flores or Chris Greer can pronounce Tua's first name.
I don't want to. Maybe I could try it. It's
anyone outside of his family and
Tua Niga Manuel Paloa.
No, don't even. You're hurting my ears.
That's what
we're gonna.
It's long.
That's not. We're gonna have lots of Tua talk. Obviously with Big E on. One more thing I want to talk about. So the only other team besides we mentioned the Eagles that does not have a head coach set up right now is, surprise, surprise, the Houston Texans. And we went into this last week, and I'm sure this is something we're going to talk about most podcasts over the next month or so until the situation gets sorted out. But reports are that it is increasingly unlikely that Deshaun Watson will play for Houston in 2021. Now, he did tweet today or yesterday that, he's asking his mom to pray for him and he wants to have patience. Maybe that brings him a smidge back into the Houston camp. Who knows? But we're going to go with what the information we have, which is reports that he's unhappy. You've got former Texans stars speaking out saying that he's been wronged. Obviously, JJ is super pissed about what's going on in that organization. So I want to hear specifically from Ian, from Big E, on your thoughts on the prospect of the Dolphins trading for Watson, what you think of it, what you think maybe if they did it, what's a package that would make sense? What do you think about it?
I am pro Tua. I love Tua. I love the fact that we have so many picks. I love the fact that we have some nice space in our cap so that we can bring in some expensive free agents to help Tua. But with that said, too, it's not up to me. It's not up to all these general managers on Twitter. It's not up to you or anybody here. It's up to Coach Flores and Chris Greer if they want to make a move. And if they do, I'm going to support them. Whoever's name is on the back of that jersey, I'm going to be supporting as long as we can get to the promised land, which is getting into the playoffs consistently and trying to get back to the Super Bowl. And if they think that Deshaun Watson is the answer for that, and they can, not make a trade package like a Ricky Williams trade package where you're basically trading the entire draft for one player, then they should be able to do it. My concerns are, and I've talked through this, well, and I'll tell you what the responses are to my concerns. My concerns are they're going to try and give too much away in order to obtain Deshaun Watson, if that was an idea. And just so everybody understands, all this stuff is coming from Deshaun Watson. You haven't heard one thing from the Houston Texans because they would look foolish to trade this guy out from what I've seen.
I've seen a lot of
something else.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of reports that the Texans have kind of begrudgingly accepted the fact that they're going to have to do something. And Deshaun's contract is structured where he holds all the cards. Number one, he doesn't have to report. And number two, he has a no trade clause, so he can pick where he goes. Like, the Texans are screwed with this whole situation. Like, they just played this completely wrong. But I'm gonna jump in and say I don't think this happens with the Dolphins. And I think when you look at Smith, what a no-brainer of a pick. Like, you might not agree with that, but I mean, like, I think Tua's good enough. Like, Smith is good enough. It doesn't kind of matter, right? Like, you have Tua, he'll make Tua better. And Tua can run and he can do some things. I wouldn't do it if I was a Dolphins fan to give up what you have to give up.
Because my immediate reaction, because I'm also a Tua fan, was to say, no, I wouldn't do it. But then, Will, you brought up a point like, well, would you do it for Patrick Mahomes? And I'm like, well, but then you and I had the discussion. Okay, Mahomes is the best, but Watson is not a huge drop off from there. He's still a top 5 QB. So I would do it, but for the right price. But here's the thing. We're not going to get the right price. There's no way I'm going to trade more than one first-round pick for him. We do have other needs, specifically playmakers. We still need to upgrade that offensive line. So I'm not going to say I would never do. No, because if you get just one pick, it's Deshaun Watson. He's a stud, but we're not going to get that price. So I agree that I don't think it'll happen. Unfortunately, it's looking like the Jets are like the top option for him. I really hope that doesn't happen.
If I was Watson, I'd go out of his mouth. Who knows?
But
I've never heard those words.
He might be a big fan of
Saleh.
Saleh.
The Post. So the New York Post put out a tweet, something about here's what the Jets could offer, and Deshaun Watson liked the post on Instagram. So of course, in the social media age, a player hits
he's going to the Jets.
It's a big news
that's
story.
That's like a girl on Facebook favoriting one of your selfies. Like, come on, it's not going to happen. Like, it was just goodwill. Like, don't think anything. You know what I mean?
So just here's an interesting thought too, and someone brought this up, and it made a lot of sense to me. Because we have this quarterback coming out called Trevor Lawrence, which is also supposed to be your next generational quarterback.
Jar Jar.
You could end up spending less draft capital to move up to pick up a Trevor Lawrence, and it would be less money on your cap hit. So, it's one of those things, and everybody throws, like I said, we've got thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of GMs on Twitter, on Facebook, on all these social media platforms. It doesn't matter, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're going to see Tua get those weapons, and I think he'll kind of put some comments to bed next season when he has a full array of weapons around him.
So let's expand on that, because we are going to jump right into our deep dive. Refresher, we are doing a team series every week. We get a different fan on to represent their team and do a deep dive on what they think the state of that team is and the direction that team should go. So this is the first time we've had an official number one fan of that team, so I'm going to jump in and milk that for all it's worth. So, Big E, I want to start with your reflections of the 2020 season as a whole. What are your thoughts on the success of this season for the Dolphins?
I will say that I was pleasantly surprised by the outcome of the season. And, last year we were supposedly tanking for Tua, which I was never on board with. And Coach Flores got 5 wins out of these guys, and most of them aren't even back on the team for.
And who did they beat in Week 17? I'm just gonna let's.
I remember clearly. That's one of my favorite games against the Patriots.
Let's expand on that.
We're not focusing on that right now. We're talking about the Dolphins.
Will, who did the Dolphins beat in Week 17 last year?
Gronkowski. Gronkowski is a defensive back.
That wasn't the game. That's a different game.
Years ago.
That's a few years ago. That's Tannehill.
Oh, that was a different one.
This was Ryan Fitzmagic.
Listen, the Patriots can't win in Miami. We all know that. Miami
is in New England.
Is
this
it?
Was
oh,
in New England.
listen. Well,
yes.
listen. I
there
obviously whatever.
He's cleaned it out of his mind.
I just want you to know, like, obviously,
I've
I've purged that, but
yes.
Let's just be honest. You're probably going to enjoy a lot of wins against the Patriots for the next few years.
And I'm going to love every second of it.
So just soak it up. But like I said, and listen, you weren't here, Ian, for this when I told Brian, beating the Patriots now, like, there's no joy in that. There should be like
you're so wrong.
That's
no
like
Dolphins
that's like somebody who like they've got their knees chopped off. They're crawling around. They hit an IED on the road. There's no life left. Like there's no honor in that.
Nope. Belichick
yes,
is the coach.
Yes,
it's wonderful. I'm gonna reel it back in. I just wanted to dig that Dolphins beating the Patriots knife a little bit deeper in your side there, Will. So Biggie, you were saying about the Dolphins season.
Yeah, so with them finishing 5-12, it really kind of gave us some momentum going into the 2020 season, and then they drafted Tua at number 5, which a lot of people didn't even think they would be able to get him at number 5, and then we had a very nice season when it comes to a 10-6 season. I mean, it's been a couple of years, but it just felt so different, and to have such a dominating defense for the majority of the season, it was really pleasant to see. And we hadn't felt this way as a Miami Dolphins fan base, to where we were in week 17 talking about winning and going to the playoffs. I mean, yeah, we experienced that in 2016, but prior to that it was 2008. So we've seen 3 or 4 playoff appearances in the last 20 years. So it was a lot of fun. It was a great surprise. At the beginning of the season, believe it or not, I predicted the Dolphins would go 10-6, but I am an extremely optimistic person. My wife says every year, I say, this is going to be the year. It's just kind of an inherent thing. So, Will, you're trying to figure out how it happens. It's like in my blood or something. I don't know why, but that's the way I think.
I think the same way. Trust me. I know how you feel.
You guys are just – Brian's going to go to the damn Super Bowl next year.
I think we're about a year or two away from that, so it's going to be great. But anyway – it left a sour taste in our mouth against the Bills, that last game of the season, but it basically sends the message to everyone that we've still got some work to do, but we're not that far off, and we've got we have a lot of high draft picks. I think it was, 5 in the top 80, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And we have a lot of money to spend still in free agency this coming year. So we're just taking the steps, going from 5-12 to 10-6 to 12-4, 13-3. I think that's in our future, believe it or not. And I know that sounds silly and optimistic, but I mean, there's nothing that tells me otherwise. The way that this coach has gotten his players to perform, and also to see some of these young guys that really performed in their rookie seasons or their first year on a free agent contract. And
one of the things I noticed different this year than those other 2 playoffs years. So 2016, I mean, we kind of snuck in. We got hot right at the end under Gase. Obviously, it wasn't Gase's doing. We've seen every other year that he's coached.
Thank you, Jay Ajayi.
Yes, in his brief stint as an NFL star.
I remember that guy.
2008 was the Wildcat year, right? And Brady injured his leg in the first game. So you had Matt Castle. They went 11-5 actually, but we got the tiebreaker and won the division that year. But it was a little bit of a gimmick, and of course we went down after that. But this was like we had a good football team.
This was legitimate. I think that's the word, legitimate.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think this is such. If we thought we were optimistic after winning 5 games with that roster last year, winning 10 with this, I mean, sky's the limit. But let's dive into Tua. Obviously, we've talked about him a little bit already, but and you've shared your thoughts on Tua, and we're very aligned on that. But I want to hear a little bit more. What is your analysis of his rookie season as a whole, and obviously his prospects for the future with the Dolphins?
I honestly think it's what you would expect to see with a rookie, what we saw with Tua. He had a couple of really good games, and then as we saw some significant injuries on the wide receiver side, his performance started to decline. However, one thing that I think is an important stat that people don't see very often, or they don't look at it, is the number of passes that Tua made into very tight windows. Between him and Fitzpatrick, I think they were 2 out of the top 3 or 4 players in the NFL that had extremely tight windows into wide receivers' hands. What that tells you is that your wide receivers weren't getting much separation. But what that also tells you is that there's definitely some accuracy there. So, what we have an accurate quarterback. We had some wide receivers that went down. Preston Williams, once he went down, I think that's when we saw that's when we really saw a decline from Tua's play. And some people would say, well, Ryan Fitzpatrick would come in and start lighting things up, but I think you get a Tua who's been told try not to throw an interception and try to get those receptions more, the yards don't matter as much, versus when Fitzpatrick comes in and the coach is saying, hey man, let it loose. We need the yards. We need to get down the field. And with that, you're going to get interceptions. And with that, you're also going to get touchdowns. So I love Ryan. And someone asked me not too long ago who my favorite player was earlier in the season. I said it was Ryan Fitzpatrick because, he's Fitzmagic one game.
Fitzmattress.
And then he'll be Fitztragic the next game, But his leadership skills were great.
I mean, your point about just, Flores opening him up and saying, do your thing. I mean, Flores doesn't need to tell Ryan Fitzpatrick to do that. Let's be honest.
It's inherent in him when he gets on the
he
field.
was in Tampa. By the way, when he wore Deshaun Jackson's chest meat open shirt with them glasses, that's the best, dude. But anyway, they called it his give a F factor was extremely low because his average depth of target was a mile. He would just hurl it downfield, and that's when Godwin and Evans were just going insane every week. And I mean, same with Winston to a large part, and you wonder where he so
what went wrong.
But yeah, I mean, Fitzpatrick has I mean, why would he? Why would he care? At this point in his career, you know what I mean? Just have fun, and he does, So I just don't understand the mid-season just rug pulling. I get it at the beginning of the year, right? Tua's our guy, boom, we're gonna go. But it was the timing of it was weird. You know what I mean?
Well, let's get your thoughts on that, Ian, because I've actually shared my thoughts on this podcast before with that specific move. What were your thoughts of when they made the switch to Tua seemingly out of nowhere?
I think it was because they wanted to get the kid some action. This was a year where you didn't have a preseason, and
as a quarterback in the NFL, he probably gets a lot of that on his own.
Yeah,
different
kind of action.
You set Will up nicely
kind.
For that. He was very excited to hear.
Sorry, my bad. I have to be more careful. But yeah, so he didn't have a preseason. He's coming off the major injury, and he's only been in practices, right? So they wanted to get him in a football game, and they felt that was the right time. We were 3-3 at the time, and Fitzpatrick did a really good job, I think, getting us to that 3-3 record because we had a very tough couple of games, the first 3 out of 4 games. But he came in, he did great. I mean, if you saw that Arizona Cardinals game, that's the Tua that we saw a lot of in college, and I think that's the Tua that everybody expected. But also, I think that was the game when Preston Williams ended up getting himself hurt, because his ankle got twisted by a receiver as he was jumping into the end zone. So I think that made a huge difference for Tua. And I think, I think if you ask anybody, we haven't seen the best of Tua yet. I think you put some weapons around him and give him that opportunity. I think that's when you'll see him at his best. But I think if anybody were to say that we've seen him at a ceiling, I think that would be an incorrect statement to say.
So would it be safe to say you think they should go maybe wide receiver at number 3?
I think so. I think either number 3 wide receiver, or if you have the opportunity to trade down 1 or 2 spots and pick up another couple picks, I would love to do that. But I want to get one of these stud wide receivers.
You can't miss on
stud
Smith.
Wide receivers. Yeah.
You're going to miss on him if you go anywhere from number 3.
It's interesting. It's interesting that people always rank wide receivers and running backs a lot higher than they end up getting drafted for some reason. I don't know why that is, but especially you'll see a Mel Kiper Jr. He'll rank all these wide receivers high, and then they'll end up coming a little bit lower than what everybody expected.
I think the NFL outthinks themselves because when you look at the stud picks, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Cam Akers,
DK Metcalf.
I named way too many Florida State players. DK Metcalf, Jerry Jeudy was a steal at number 11, I believe, for the Broncos. I mean, if you really want one of these players, and I'm gonna, I hate this franchise, so this is gonna hurt me to say, but if you really want one of these players, you just need to go full Giants and just take him at number 2 or 2, right?
If you have that belief in him, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but
I go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I agree that we want a stud wide receiver. Devontae Smith makes the most sense simply because of that rapport. Jamar Chase, I'm sure, is going to have a great NFL career, but just something about getting somebody that Tua is comfortable with, somebody that he's familiar with, that he's thrown passes to, who also happens to be an absolute stud, who had 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half of the national championship game and won the Heisman. What are your thoughts? Let's say Penei Sewell falls down to 3, and he's, from what everybody's saying, is a can't-miss tackle prospect. Do you think the Dolphins should consider adding an absolute stud left tackle at number 3?
You know, here's the thing. He's a left tackle right now, isn't he?
Correct. Which means they'd probably move Jackson to right tackle.
Right. So, I don't know. I'd still think about trying to see what we can get in compensation for that number 3 pick to still be able to get what we want and continue to continue to accumulate draft picks as the seasons go on. Because you see, last draft, we had 2 first-round, 2 second-round picks. This coming year, we're going to have 2 first, 2 second-round picks. Next year, wouldn't it be great if we had a nice number as well? Because that way, as players start, getting too expensive, I guess you can say, you can continually have this carousel of new players that you can bring on board. Now, the secret to that, too, is having a good department that can actually determine the right players for your team. Because if you're drafting all these guys, and you're not hitting on them, then you're going to have trouble. Perfect example is Noah Igbinoghene right now. Can you spell that one, William? Igbinoghene. That's a good one.
You don't want me to.
Okay. He came in for one game. I want to say he played for the majority of the game when Byron Jones went down against the Patriots. I want to say it was, and he did not look good. And he never really came in for significant work since then. And he's one of your number one, your first round draft picks.
Yep. So
I think it's all going to be about your scouting department and your talent evaluation. But you want to have those. You want to have that continual number of draft picks, a higher number than your traditional number.
Well, let's talk about one more thing with the Dolphins before we move on to talking about the playoff games. Obviously, Chan Gailey retired, much to the delight of many Twitter Dolphins fans. And some might say, and I'm going to agree with this, that I don't know that his offense was innovative enough for the modern NFL. Some people say that he was drawing up different plays and having a different playbook with Tua in the ballgame versus Fitzpatrick. What are your thoughts on the offensive coordinator search, whether it's an individual OC you'd like to see or maybe a different style of offense that you think might fit Tua?
Listen, I want an offensive coordinator who is going to encourage our quarterback Tua to throw early and throw often. I want somebody who's going to be able to get into Tua's head and say, I want you to throw it down the field, and I want that wide receiver to make a 50-50 catch. That was what made Ryan Fitzpatrick and Devontae Parker such great partners together, because Ryan Fitzpatrick would throw the ball up while Devontae is still running down the field. Then all of a sudden he'd turn around, jump up, and he'd make that catch, because he put it kind of in the right area for Devontae to jump up and make that 50-50 catch. And that's something that we didn't really see with Tua until third quarter of the Dolphins versus Buffalo Bills game, and we were down by 30 points already. And then I think it was 3 passes to Devontae Parker in a row in that exact process, right? So that's kind of what I want. And, if you find a college offensive coordinator that can do something like that, because that's what they're used to in college, great. If it's going to be an existing Miami Dolphins coordinator, that can do that can instill that type of confidence into it, that's great too. I don't have any one particular person that I'm really liking. I know that the Clemson offensive coordinator was
Tony Elliott.
Elliott was in the mix, and I kind of like that because, again, they open it up a little bit more in college than you do in the NFL. But I heard that he's staying in Clemson.
I think he wants to stay in college, yeah.
Exactly. No, unless we make him an offer, he just can't refuse, right, to come to the NFL.
Sure, this guy coached Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that's promising.
Exactly. So I think he could do some wonders with Tua. And, I think, again, it's all going to be about the weapons that the Dolphins end up bringing on board. And I think that's going to make or break how Tua does this coming year.
I agree. And we're both optimistic. We're both Dolphins fans. I'm going to go with your prediction, 12-4 next year, making the playoffs. Whether we win the East with the Bills surging is a different story. Let's use that to go ahead and transition to talking about those playoff games. So first, we're going to recap the divisional games. I went 2-2, so I missed on 2 of the games. So we'll talk about those shortly. But the first game is one that I don't know many people who missed on that, is that the Green Bay Packers beat the Rams 32-18.
In a snooze fest.
Game. It was very boring. It was a game that never looked in doubt. I mean, the Packers, this is the number one defense in the NFL versus one of the best defenses, and the Packers just had their way with that Rams defense. Granted, Aaron Donald was injured. They were not letting him. He was constantly coming out of the game, and when he was in, he wasn't that effective. He had the rib issue from the week before. But the rest of that vaunted Rams defense, they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't. Aaron Rodgers threw 3 touchdowns. They just had their way. So, Ian, we'll start with you. What is, besides the obvious, what were your thoughts on the results of this game?
I think you clearly saw who the best player on the field was in Aaron Rodgers, and that team that they had, and they didn't need to go to Davante Adams as often as they normally do because Rodgers was really spreading around the ball a lot, and like you said, once you get their running back. What's his name? My brain.
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones. Yeah. I mean, Aaron Jones and their backup running back too was doing very well. So, I mean, I just love watching that kind of football for the Packers, especially in the stadium which had fans for the first time this season. That was fun to watch. That was fun to watch, and I look forward. I know we're going to talk about them next season or next week when they play the Brady Bucks.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna talk. I know Will has some thoughts there. Any thoughts for this Packers game? I mean, like you said, it was pretty dull, and both Saturday games were. But anything interesting, Will?
No. I mean, no.
No.
I mean, again, does anybody really think the Rams had a solid chance with no Cooper Kupp? You know what I mean? Like
Jared Goff with only one thumb.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, some of these games we just have to get through like the people that like, this sounds really horrible to say, but like the people that don't belong. You know what I mean? But it's just like a feel good story.
Yeah.
And like, right. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, but
no,
like,
it's true though. The Rams weren't on the fringe of not even making the playoffs in Week 17. Right? Had they not beat Seattle, it was a good chance they could have missed the playoffs. Well, Chicago lost, but still, they were right there. And so the fact that they're facing the number 1 seed in Lambeau with the presumptive MVP, it just felt like a foregone conclusion. I think that's all the analysis that's needed for this game. Let's go on to the other game, which was also surprisingly boring. Surprisingly, because this was one of the games I was looking the most forward to, and that was that the Buffalo Bills win 17-3 over the Ravens. This is one of the games I got wrong. I did pick the Ravens to win. I think, Will, you did too.
Yeah, we probably both did.
Right. I mean, it was clear. This was not a knock on Buffalo. I thought that...
I will say, I think I said, as long as playoff Lamar doesn't show up.
Throwing a lot of interceptions, right?
Right.
Yeah, turnovers.
And it was actually that... So they still had a chance. It was, 10-3, and the Ravens were driving to tie the game up, but Lamar threw an interception in the end zone that was returned 102 yards for a touchdown, and that was it. They literally only got 3 points on the game. My prediction was that the Ravens defense was going to be the difference, and the Ravens defense actually played really well. So, I mean, Josh Allen and the Bills only had 1 touchdown. Yeah, they had 1 defensive touchdown, 1 field goal, and then an offensive touchdown. So the Ravens did a good job of slowing that Bills defense down. It's just Lamar... Will, I want to hear from you, Will, because you're up and down. One week you're like, oh, Lamar, and the next week you're like, Lamar sucks. So,
well, so is Lamar, to be fair. And I mean, Lamar's game, again, is predicated on play action largely. I mean, he's not like a tight window down the field, push the ball. That's not his MO, right? So when you start to get behind, he can get squirrely on you. And I mean, watching that game, I mean, they were going to have to play really good football. I mean, the Ravens have a lot of pieces, I think the thing for Ravens fans to think about is God, I mean, when you have the kind of team that you have with that kind of defense, with those cornerbacks that they have, who aren't getting any younger, when are you going to do it? You know what I mean? Is Lamar going to be that guy that gets you that close? And then you just, I would like to have a Ravens fan on the podcast who would say, what do we need? Right? What do we need? You got Hollywood Brown, who should be, he's good.
He had a good end to the season. He finished strong and played well in the playoffs.
I mean, he had some drop issues. Andrews is probably one of the best tight ends in the league. Like, I think that's fair to say. Sure. Considering there's only like 3 good ones in the entire NFL. Yeah, it's probably fair. From a stats point of view.
They do need more wide receivers. Des Bryant at age 38 or whatever was their number 2 wide receiver for a while.
I think didn't they say during that game, like, nobody's scared of Des Bryant going deep? They just sit on his routes. So yeah, I mean, you hope that Lamar's the truth, right? And I like Lamar. Like, I think it's good that the NFL has a guy like that. You know what I mean? Because they've never really. You've had people that just have been that kind of like dual threat. But
Vic's kind of the closest comparison.
Yeah, but Vic was, I mean, yes, and like the thing is like I don't really buy into like Lamar as a glorified running back hype or.
They threw 30 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, right. Like I don't think that's the case, but I do think he has a very unique set of skills. Right, and like
was that supposed to be a Liam Neeson?
That was Liam Neeson.
Yeah, that was Liam Neeson.
That was an awful impression. Okay, continue.
I wasn't. Listen, but anyway, what I'm saying is that like you kind of gotta, and like I think one of the reasons that the Ravens have been so successful is because they have been able to kind of build their team around his skill set. Like a lot of people would draft somebody like I don't know Tim Tebow, and then. Not, right? And then want him to be Peyton Manning, and then he's not Peyton Manning, and then you think that he sucks. So, like, to the Ravens' credit, they did not do that with Lamar, which is good. But you got to give him something else. You got to give him, I mean, Dobbins is okay. Edwards is okay. Andrews, Brown, maybe one more weapon, one more good receiver. They don't need much. They just need to keep it together for a game,
Right.
So...
Ian, any thoughts on this game?
Here's what I'm going to say, and I'm not totally surprised by what happened. I mean, Buffalo was absolutely the better team. We had seen that against the Dolphins, the last week of the season. But in my opinion, and you guys can agree or disagree, but I think these running quarterbacks have a much smaller shelf life than your pocket passers do. And I'll give the obvious, which is the RG3 who got you to a Super Bowl for Washington, right? And then he gets himself hurt and he never kind of came back, because what's happening is they're getting hit a lot harder and a lot more frequently than your traditional pocket passers who will only sit back and usually get the sacks, right? And unfortunately, we saw with Mahomes, he got that hit too, right, as he was rolling out of the pocket. And usually Mahomes is the kind of guy that's not going to get touched because he's so quick and he's making such great decisions about what to do with the ball that he doesn't really get those hits. But, you see these guys and some people would argue and say, well, that's kind of where the NFL is going to get those real mobile quarterbacks. But you say that until they start getting hurt. And the more they get hurt, the less effective they end up being on the field. One thing I do want to mention too, and I think it's worth mentioning, and as a Dolphins fan, it's hard for me to give the Buffalo Bills fans credit, but they have raised actually $140,000 as a Buffalo Bill fan base for a charity of choice, or the charity that Lamar Jackson
believe it's in the 300s now. I think it was 300,000.
Was it 300? Okay,
yeah,
I'm looking at something that was 4 hours. 4 hours ago on USA Today, it says it tops 150,000. Oh yeah, there it is, 360,000 now to his favorite charity. Yeah. So
they may throw sex toys on the field, but they're good people.
Bill's Mafia for you.
And crash through tables at their tailgates.
Right.
I have seen
that. Listen, they have never won a Super Bowl, right? At least most of the other teams in the NFL have won a Super Bowl. So they've been
to a few, but just lost.
They've been to 4 in a row, but that's another story. But no, I'm not surprised by the outcome of that game. It wasn't fun to watch, and then you saw, once you saw Lamar get hurt, it was pretty much over. So.
Well, I have a lot of money riding on the Bills winning the Super Bowl that I bet from preseason. So I was all for that result. I will say that. I also emotionally
What
hedged.
if Josh Allen and the Bills are playing the Bucs in the Super Bowl? Who do you cheer for? Your money or
No, obviously not. That's an emotional hedge for sure.
That's
I
correct.
also parlayed my emotional hedge and I bet on the Chiefs and the Saints, and I could never have been happier to lost that.
There you go.
So speaking of teams who have never won a Super Bowl, let's go to a team who's never been to a Super Bowl, the game that I thought was the most exciting of the weekend, and that was the Cleveland Browns coming up just short against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Robbed.
22-17. We're going to talk about this game maybe more than any of the other games. I found myself to be a Browns fan during this game, especially when they started to come back. Once Chad Henne was in, Big E, you and I are familiar with Chad Henne.
Definitely Dolphins
I was like,
connection there.
oh, this is going to happen.
He's still alive?
He's still alive.
He's alive. He played football this past weekend.
And he might start next week. We'll talk about that when we get to the previews. That's a whole other story. But
I can't wait until somebody trots out Christian Hackenberg.
Is he still around? Wasn't he? He went to the XFL or the AAF. He was in one of those leagues. Anyway, this game was one of those no-brainers. I can't pick against the Chiefs when Mahomes is starting. So as much as I love the Browns story, I love that they beat the Steelers, crushed the Steelers really in that first playoff game. But to see that kind of heartbreak, Chad Henne's in the game. Oh, the Browns have a chance. And then of course Andy Reid is still Andy Reid. They've still got Chris Jones making plays. They've still got Kelsey making plays. And unfortunately the Chiefs won. So Ian, we'll start with you on this one. What were your thoughts on the Browns-Chiefs playoff game?
My heart was with the Browns. My brain was with the Chiefs.
Yep.
I think that's the best way to say it, because I was hoping that the Browns would be able to get further for their fan base, because I know not only have they not made it to the Super Bowl,
I feel
but they lost their
your
team
pain.
Once. Yeah, they lost their team once when it moved over to Baltimore,
Yep.
right? And then they came back. So and their fans are more loyal than probably many fans of other teams, because they've just been around so long. So I was hoping for that, but it was an entertaining game, and I did find myself also, rooting for the Browns towards the end. I thought the Chiefs were going to run away with it, but then
America was rooting for the Browns.
Yes.
I think so.
Let's be honest. Everybody who's not in Kansas City was rooting for the damn Browns.
I was, last season I was rooting for the Chiefs, because it had been so long for the Chiefs that they had not been to the Super Bowl in so long. So when the Dolphins are not in, and when the Patriots are not in, because when the Patriots were in, I was rooting for anyone.
Patriots aren't going to be in for a long time.
Thank goodness. But anyway,
yes.
That's
Music
why I
to my
rooted
ears.
for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, does that
that's
make
the
us?
reason why I was rooting for them.
Does that make us Bills fans then, Ian? Are we gonna admit that?
No, I'd rather the Chiefs repeat than the Bills. I just can't.
Just can't.
I can't.
I really
do
don't
that.
want the Chiefs
Inherently,
to
I
repeat.
can't.
Oh my God! Like, people are going to be they're already insufferable about Patrick Mahomes. Like, let's
But
be
they're
honest.
such nice people. The Chiefs are just
Sure.
incredibly
It's such
nice
a great
people.
fan base.
Sure.
It's a great fan base. Mahomes is so likable. But like I said, we're going to talk about that. We're going to preview the games. We're going to lengthen the two conference championships. But speaking of insufferable, Mr. Will, Mr. Brady, Fairweather, your Bucks.
There's no fair weather.
The History Channel game.
The weather follows Tom, and it's always sunny.
TB Tom Brady, TB Tampa Bay beat the New Orleans Saints in what was likely Drew Brees' last game, and a little bit of a sad game.
He told Winston, "This is your team now." Like, from the
Did he
sideline.
really? I didn't see that quote.
He
said it on the sideline.
Yeah, he whispered to him, like, "This is." I don't know if it's your team.
So
now,
he
but
didn't
said,
tell
"This is your
Taysom Hill
team."
that. He told Jameis Winston that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He might not be playing for the Saints next season.
Right.
Who knows?
I mean, Taysom Hill wasn't there, and he could have just been like.
She's like, pass it along.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the story in this game is that I felt that Brees was actually a liability to his team.
Yeah, like, they would have been better off with Winston, man.
I mean, he threw that one bomb. He comes
put
in,
some,
they do the
put
trick
some
play.
crab legs in the end zone. He's going after it. He's going after it.
Or a female Uber driver.
But I mean, here's the thing. And I mean, there are a lot of people that love Drew Brees, and whether you agree with his politics or not, great for the game, right? Underdog story. I mean, like, Drew Brees could have been a Dolphin, by the way, for both of you too.
You had to add that, didn't you, Will?
Familiar with that.
You could have done that.
You loved Culpepper.
But cracks his ribs, right? Just I mean, on his like, he had nothing on it. His balls were just like, I mean,
interceptions,
like,
including the
it's
game
just
sealer.
bad.
Yeah, he was the liability there. So, do you have any additional insight into this game? I mean, like I said, this game was good. It was better than the two Saturday games, but certainly was not like that riveting, especially because
it was
Breeze just looked so
riveting.
ineffective. It was riveting for you as a Brady fan. I wouldn't even say a Bucs fan. You're just a Brady fan. Brady could go play for the Argonauts,
just said
and you would cheer
four of my favorite players in the league now are on the same team. I am now a fan of that team.
So let's go into previewing the conference championship games. So both of the games will be on Sunday this week, and we will start with your Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Lambeau to take on the number 1 seed Green Bay Packers, the presumptive MVP Aaron Rodgers. We're going to preview these games, and we'll all make picks. And yes, Will, I will let you start with them. Are you going to pick your emotional hedge? Are you going to pick the Bucs to win this game against the Packers?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't.
Let's hear why.
Number one, what is it? 38-10 earlier in the year, right?
Right.
So there's that. But I mean, again, it's gonna be. It could be a coin flip, you know. I mean, I haven't looked at the lines. I would say it's probably pretty close. I mean, a lot of it, you know, depends on AB's injury. You know, how that knee comes along. A lot of
They said it wasn't serious. He should play.
A lot of it, he should play, but I mean, like you know who else they said is fine? Michael Thomas was not fine. Did you see that report?
He was gone.
Yeah,
wasn't on the injury report. Didn't practice. Didn't say that he was hurt, and then goes out there and like throws up a zero burger for like everybody that played him in fantasy. Me. Right? And because dude, that was just bad, you know, like whatever.
He was cheap. I picked him up. Why not?
Exactly. Yeah. And then
he said he wanted to, just in case Breeze did win a Super Bowl, he wanted to be there for that.
He wanted to be on the field. Yeah. Like when the Broncos carried the corpse of Peyton Manning to a Super Bowl. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you know, Tampa, as we saw from Tyreek Hill not that long ago, can get scorched in the air. You know, and I don't know. I can't remember what Devontae's status was that week. But this game depends on their ability to get the ball to Devontae Adams. I mean, you're not going to run on Tampa, really. Even with Vita Vea in his current status, you know.
They just reactivated him. He's
oh, really?
Back. Yeah,
he's back this week.
Then you're not going to run on Tampa. So let's leave it at that. And you know, so it's all on Adams. If Adams goes nuts, Tampa has no chance, you know, because
they don't have anybody that can cover Devontae Adams.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can put a couple people on it. Aaron Rodgers and
Lazard has been playing well. So if you get a better game from Lazard and MVS, and if Tunyon is you know, they are vulnerable to tight ends as well. Although Devon White played really well last game.
Yeah,
I don't know. Sure it can happen. But I think across the board, Green Bay is going to be too much for Tampa Bay. The defense is certainly playing better. The pass rush is getting better. I got to pick the Packers in this.
Okay.
So you're going to stick with your Bucs pick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, are you going to have just convinced me not to? No. I'm not going to pick Aaron Rodgers. No.
Discount double check. Ian, what do you
I do think, though, just before we go to Ian, I do think it is a little unfair to say it's Rodgers versus Brady. It's not, right? They're playing the defenses. So I kind of hate those narratives a little bit because I think they're kind of just
But
dumb.
it's the 500th time that these guys have played against each other. That's the narrative, right? 520th time, whatever it is. Yeah. That'll be the story that we find.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? What are your predictions for this game, then, Ian?
I think Green Bay is going to take it. I think that Aaron Rodgers is having an MVP season. I don't think he stops here. I think he's got a nice little wide receiver group, and you know, I do like their running back group. Not just Aaron Jones, but their backup running back as well.
Jamal Williams.
Here's the other thing too. It's going to be 20 degrees on Sunday, and I know that Tom Brady is used to playing in the cold, but I don't know if you heard some of the interviews that he talked about this season. About how it was, you know, it was a lot easier to play in Tampa in the 70-degree weather than it was to play in New England in the 20 or 30-degree weather.
Especially at his age. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some other.
You're gonna just say that Brady has arthritis?
No.
my bad knee's going.
Well, I'll tell you, cold actually does have effect on different people. You know, I go out and I'll play basketball in the cold, and my hands now, and they never used to do this, they they do start like getting painful if it gets too cold.
Right.
And the players are going to react a little differently too. Somebody like
you know what you got to do? You just put them right down your underwear and just hold them there for a few minutes, warm them right up.
Yeah, the guys wouldn't want to play.
And then just pass the ball back.
That's okay.
Right after that.
Sage medical advice from Will Southard.
But Mike Evans and their other wide receiver and
Godwin.
Some of the other. They don't really play in cold too often if you think about it. So this is going to be very different for them versus Green Bay. Pretty much their last 3 to 5 games have all been in cold weather.
Yep.
So I think that could be a factor that a lot of people don't end up talking about, and they'll probably talk about it as we get closer to the game. But I think Green Bay is going to take it, which kind of hurts me a little bit because one of my wife's best friends she grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and she's a huge Green Bay Packers fan, and she knows that I'm going to the Super Bowl. So she, without saying it, she's threatened my daughter's life so that she can go to the Super Bowl with me. But we're gonna have
I'll tell you right now,
if
Tom Brady and Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski are in the Super Bowl in Tampa, which is about an hour and a half from me, I'll be there with you. I don't care what it costs. I'll be there with you. Let me my
$7,500 per ticket.
What price? I'll be there in spirit, really. That's
quick 180 there.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll spend a lot of money to go to that game. I won't spend that, for nosebleed seats, but I'll pray that they come back next year. Then
I was looking at it on Ticketmaster today. I was just curious. I'm like, how much are the tickets in the nosebleed upper corner? The least expensive tickets as of now is $7,500 per ticket.
What's the capacity even going to be there? I mean, obviously they can't have
16,000 fans.
16,000.
Yeah, that's why.
Supply and
I
demand.
think normally the Super Bowl is like probably
$2,500,
$2,500, $3,000, something like that.
Correct.
Which is, I don't want to say about right for 3 hours. I'd be sitting there like,
cheaper.
I'll be looking at my watch like, oh shit, they won $100. They won $100. They won $100. You know what I mean?
It's cheaper as it gets closer to. That's usually the way it works. So it's high demand like 2 weeks before because people are planning, but like the week before is when you can find the least expensive tickets.
But hey, Will, it's okay. Your bank account is safe. The Packers are going to win. Tom Brady's going to get
eliminated. Now, to be fair, what was my prediction for the Super Bowl on Twitter?
Packers Chiefs.
Exactly. So,
there you go.
I mean, I won't have gotten it wrong.
Close.
I just
preseason.
Oh, congratulations! No, in the playoffs, he picked the two number one seeds. Yeah, way to go out on a limb there.
And I'm gonna be wrong. Like, come on.
There you go. Will.
I think we need to. Didn't we say we were gonna bet on something this weekend? I feel like we did.
We did. I can't remember what the bet was. If you can
was
think
it,
of
was
it,
was it Brady Rodgers? I think it might have been.
Oh yeah, you want to do it? You want to put a wager for? I'll happily jump on the Aaron Rodgers side of that bet. What are the terms?
I think we need to bet. I think we need to bet a Reddit roast me picture.
Okay, I'm down.
Fine.
Fair enough.
I'm already on there, but I've already lost a bet actually, and I'm on roast me from if you look up this guy cried when Donald Trump won. That's me. And the number one comment on there, which people went brutal on that thing. The number one comment is his hairline looks like a McDonald's arch, and I'm not loving it.
That's good.
It's just, I mean.
All right, it's a deal. Virtual handshake. Straight up, whoever wins this game, loser has to go on a Reddit roast me. Awesome. Let's move on to the other conference championship game for the AFC. So we have the Buffalo Bills traveling to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, there is one big caveat right off the bat with this game, and that, please, for the love of the football gods, if we have Chad Henne versus Josh Allen, come on, don't do that to us. Now, reports are out today that Mahomes is still in the concussion protocol, but the first step, whatever steps he had to pass, he passed, so he's on.
Seeing straight?
I guess so.
I mean, that's step number one.
Walking.
Yeah.
He's
aware of his name.
He knows his name. He knows.
I saw though, if you watch him, like when he came off the field, they said that it wasn't as much like a concussion as it looked like that he probably like got his neck cranked and like lost blood.
Because he didn't get it. Wasn't a headshot.
Right. So I mean, you can kind of get a little like,
woozy,
silly.
Lightheaded.
So
and he was. What did he put? He had some sort of clever tweet at the end, like anything is possible. So I mean, he was obviously in a good enough state of mind to make a bad.
Listen, I just don't want his ketchup steak eating goofy self with his high pitch. I can't take another Mahomes Super Bowl. Like, put it this way: they can win a Super Bowl, but like take a year off or 2 years off. You know what? This is probably what it feels like to not be a Patriots fan. And I hate it. I hate it.
It's glorious.
It's just like, go away, Patrick Mahomes.
I hope Belichick and the Patriots go 7-9 every year, like specifically 7-9.
I just mean like this is what it means to like just not want people like in the Super Bowl again. It's just like, and you know they're gonna win
for 20 years,
2 decades, man.
Years.
All right, welcome to the club. You have no idea what it feels like.
You know, so I saw this graphic too. I think it was NFL memes. It would said years since 1997 or NFC Championship game since 1997. Tom Brady 1, Dallas Cowboys 0. Years in the NFC since 1997. Dallas Cowboys 24, Tom Brady 1.
Jeez.
This is the best.
Insane. Well, let's pick this game, but let's go under the assumption that Mahomes is playing quarterback, because I think if Henny plays, I don't even want to talk about the game. So let's assume that Mahomes is in. Big E, we'll start with you on this one. Where do you see this game going, which should be a pretty good duel of 2 great quarterbacks?
So I think if Mahomes comes in, and I think my heart is with Kansas City. But my brain goes with the Bills, just because I do think whatever happened with Mahomes, even if he's back in, I don't think he's going to be 100%. I think he's still going to have some lasting effects with whatever that injury was. And
he had a toe injury too. I mean, he
had a toe injury.
Yeah.
He had that neck injury. So if he's at 85%, he's not going to tell anybody he's at 85%. He's just going to jump on the field and he's going to play. And I think that's going to hurt them. I think he's not going to be able to be as mobile.
It's not going to hurt him as much as they're going to have Chad Henne. Let's be honest.
Right. Well,
he can play on his knees and be better than Chad Henne.
But I think the Bills have been very consistent. I think that they've been playing a lot of really good football the last couple of months. And I think the one thing though with the Bills, and if you can figure it out, then you can beat them, is they really don't have a run game, if you think about it, besides Allen running
Singletary
out of the
has underwhelmed.
Significantly, and he was one of my early draft picks in
I'm
fantasy.
sensing a theme from you.
And Moss, I don't know if I think Moss is still
number one
out.
fan, last in fantasy.
No, I won 1 out of 4 of my leagues, and that was my pay league. So
God help
the
people
bucks.
that you play against.
It was against other Dolphins fans, so they all had Dolphins players on it.
That's right.
There you go. Don't be the homer. Don't pick all the Dolphins players.
And
I've done that
one
before.
of the rules.
Yeah,
it's one of the rules when you're playing against other Dolphins players.
So I'm in a FanDuel Friends League for people that I used to live in Richmond, so my old work there. And like every week, like Terry McLaurin in our cash game would be like 80% owned. It's just like it's so funny. You just see it coming.
Yeah, and you just like, all right, you enjoy that, because I don't think he's going to do too well, because who's throwing to him this week? 1, 2, or 3 or whoever. But anyway, so my pick is going to be the Bills, regardless of who's starting, and I hope it's the Chiefs, because I'd rather be the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. But I really think it's going to be the Bills.
Well, what is your thoughts on this game?
I mean, I don't know, man. Like the Chiefs looked beatable by the Browns. I mean, I mean, they got robbed. Can we at least agree that they got robbed of that touchdown going into the half, right? For sure.
The fumble that's what a stupid rule. I hope they visit that in the offseason.
And the other thing, I saw Blandino, who used to be, I think, like the head of, he was pretty high
Dean
up there.
Blandino. Yeah.
What his title was though. He's like, I think he was head of officiating.
He was head of officiating in the NFL a few years ago.
He's like, it's consistent with every other loose ball rule and the blah blah blah. It's like, dude, I don't care. Like, nobody likes that rule. Like, it doesn't matter what team you're on. It doesn't matter who you go for. Like, when you see that rule, you're like, come on. You know what I mean? And like,
Chiefs fans didn't like that rule. Yeah. I saw Chiefs fans saying like, oh, that they got robbed there.
Yeah, because the Chiefs knew that like that game was already a foregone conclusion. What was funny is what game did the Chiefs go down to the Texans, right? They went down like 3 or 4 scores in the first quarter of the Texans, and
last year.
Yeah, and like you couldn't get good odds on the Texans. Like the Chiefs were still like relatively almost favored down like 3 scores in the first quarter. It's really stupid. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think with Mahomes' foot that looked kind of suspect. The way to beat the Bills is on the ground, you know. But that's the way to beat Kansas City too. So I think this could go either way. I'm gonna pick the upset, man. I think the Bills take this. You know, I think that Mahomes is not 100%. I think Allen's playing lights out. I think he's gonna bring it. You know, and I think that's what we're gonna see.
I'll play contrarian here because I said from basically every week when we make these picks that I will not pick against the Chiefs with Mahomes starting. Even at 85%, if Mahomes is going to start in this game, look at the weapons they have. I mean, you got Kelsey, you got Hill. All you got to do is get those guys the ball, and they'll make things happen. You've got other McCole Hardman could break. I mean, he obviously did some damage to the Dolphins when we played them. So I think it's good. I'm excited. I'm not necessarily excited about the Bucs-Packers game. I'm excited about the Bills-Chiefs, and my feelings are opposite of yours, Biggie, in that my emotions are actually with the Bills. Yes, they're an AFC East rival, but I kind of like their fan base. I want to see them have some success. I like the underdog story, so I would emotionally perhaps like to see the Bills.
And Josh Allen was like supposed to
be publicly.
But Josh Allen was like
not on the record.
Josh Allen was like supposed to be awful, right? You know what I mean?
Started
like
off pretty bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, like that's the thing. Like, you know, you can't. I mean, number one, Josh Allen was a Patriots fan as a kid, and I have the pictures to prove it. So there was that.
Oh, well, that knocks him down a peg. I don't want to.
But yeah,
I think Josh Allen he's a poster child for don't give up on your quarterback after the rookie season.
Exactly.
I think that's the one I go for.
Yes, everybody's talking. Oh, Josh Allen.
I mean,
look at him.
He and Daniel Jones went like this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know anybody that still can look at Daniel Jones with a straight face and think like franchise.
Daniel Jones lit up the preseason in his rookie year, and everybody was like, "Oh, Danny Dimes got the nickname."
Bro, he tackled himself on a 90-yard. What are you doing?
That's right up there with the Sanchez butt fumble.
I was just gonna say that's butt fumble level. Like, what are you doing?
You know what he did? He created the best meme in the world after that about like kids kicking him and him rolling down and rolling down and rolling. If you've not seen it, you got to look up the
He did it to himself?
Yeah, well, no, someone made a meme with him once he fell down to some music, and like he just kept rolling down the street, rolling down a river, rolling down a movie, rolling through. It was hilarious. It was great.
Nice. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Chiefs pick. I emotionally would like to see the Bills. I don't hate the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs, so it'll be a fun game either way. But so that makes my Super Bowl pick Packers Chiefs, which would line up with what Will predicted a few weeks ago. So let's wrap it up. But before I wrap up, I want to hear from you, Big E, on what it was like the whole Good Morning Football. And I know it was a surprise for you. You were actually scheduled to be on this podcast last week, and you messaged me. You're like,
I told you something's coming up.
I'm so sorry. My this was around when the Deshaun Watson stuff just broke. So my website wants me to talk about the Deshaun Watson stuff. I got to go. I'm like, I get it. And then all of a sudden I see, you're posting like, hey, check Good Morning Football in the morning. I'm like, wait, what? But it was awesome. Obviously, I watched the segment. It was so cool to see you on there. But I'd love to hear from your perspective what that was like.
The most nervous thing I've ever done in my life. I think that's the best way to describe it. When you're on live television and you know that a lot of people are watching you, especially people that you kind of know. I was worried that I was going to say something wrong, or I wasn't going to sound confident, or in some cases, because this has been a very emotional journey for me, that I would break down crying on live national TV. That kind of
don't become a meme.
Was all on my mind.
Don't become a meme. Don't do it.
That was my thinking. That's like all that's, and I was like seeing all these bloopers on YouTube, right, of all these people that do crazy things on live TV. So I was nervous. I think I woke up at 4 a.m, which for me is not normal. Some people wake up every day at 4 a.m. I don't know how they do it.
They're called aliens.
Yeah, I had to drop my daughter off at school, so I drove her to school. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, my car's going to break down. Somebody's going to hit me. I'm going to, all these things are going through my mind. Like, how am I not going to get back to my computer in time? But then I got there. I was on 10 minutes before the segment. They asked me to be on 10 minutes before, and they kind of told me what they were going to be doing, and they just asked the questions. And, I think the first question I was really nervous to respond to, but then, I started getting more comfortable as I was speaking, and it is, and I keep saying it. I feel like I've already won, right? I know that there's a competition where there's one final NFL fan of the year. Whoever that person's going to be, we'll find out in a couple weeks. But
wait, what do you have to do to win? Like,
what's
like the
judges?
But what are they judging you on? Like, are you just going to show up with like your Tua tattoo?
You had to put together like videos, right? Like fan video, yeah.
Yeah, I had to kind of tell my story, what I do, what I've done for the communities, how and there's actually like a whole like rating system about how you can do it. Like 33% is community, 33% is your passion for the game, how you show the passion for the game, passion for your team. So they basically, a bunch of people nominated me through social media, and they asked me for a video. What happened was you were in top 32. Every team had one representative, and then they brought us down to top 8, which I made the top 8. I think those top 8 had to create a 2-minute video about why you think you should be the fan of the year, be considered for the fan of the year finalists. And then I was selected to be in the top 3. And now there's a group of judges. I think Chad Pennington is one of the judges.
Oh, that works in your favor.
NFL executives.
Hopefully.
And here's the thing, and I say this, there's 2 other individuals that are in that final group. It's Mama Blue up in Seattle. She's been going to games since the 1960s. I want to say she paints her face, and she just turned 90 years old last weekend. Then you've got Brandon.
You stand no chance.
Well, and then you got like Brandon, who's a Tennessee Titans rep, and
guy.
he does amazing things with like troubled youth. He brings them to games, he mentors them, and so my point is, these people are just great people, right? And that's just 2 out of the other 29 people, because we have doctors, we have nurses, we have firefighters, we have organ donors, we have people who've overcome major illnesses in their life that are a part of this group. And it's been a very humbling experience, to be honest with you, because you say I'm the number 1 fan of the year, but again, I'm a fan like everybody else. I go to all the games, I root for the team. I think just a couple of things differentiate me from some other folks. So
one last question: what is the grand prize?
Yeah,
I don't know,
because you already got a trip to the Super Bowl. You've already been featured on Good Morning Football. It's like, what else? What else is there? Do you get like a front office position with?
I mean, it's if it keeps going the way it's going, you can probably start for the Houston Texans.
Hey, as a head coach, yeah.
They have a head coach position.
I'm big enough, my jersey number 66.
Something tells me you're not fast enough, though.
No, definitely not. I think I do a 7.7 30 or something like that, or 7.7 whatever.
7.7 That's
like... Well, I can say, seeing the segment, I thought you did a fantastic job, Big E. So if you were nervous, it didn't
How
show.
are you Big E when your name is Ian? It starts with an I.
So it's an interesting story. I was in a corporate softball league about 20 some odd years ago, and the coach of the softball league, he got me a jersey, and on the jersey it was Big E, and I was like, all right, it sounds better than Big I, right? So
it could be
my
Big
name
E.
is pronounced Ian. So it just stuck with me. So whenever I went on a basketball court, they're like, hey, what's your name? I'd be like, just call me Big E. So everything after that was Big E, Big E, Big E. So. And I know there's a really cool rapper.
And they're like, can't you see?
I was just thinking that exactly. I was saying that. Dang it, man, you got me. You beat me.
There you go. You got your own.
That's how you win. You just go on there and rap.
Yeah. So the final package, just so you know, they said that the final winner is going to get a special once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They haven't really specified what that is, but I get up there Friday night. We get up there. My daughter and I are going to get up there Friday. We already got our hotel information. And then on Saturday, we go to the NFL Honors in the evening. So we're attending the NFL Honors event. That's where they actually announce the winner.
Nice.
And I think it's cool. I hope Brian Flores gets Coach of the Year while he's there.
That would be cool.
Xavier Howard gets Defensive Player of the Year and he's there. And I hope Zach Thomas is nominated or is added to the Hall of Fame and he's there. And then Sunday we go to the Super Bowl, and then Monday is when we head home. But I think there's some other experiences while we're there. I think there might be some opportunities for like a breakfast or a dinner with an NFL executive, which could be really, really cool too.
That would be awesome.
We were on, just so you know, too, one of the other benefits is that we got a chance to be on a Zoom with Roger Goodell, and he was answering our questions. And I'm thinking to myself, when do you in your lifetime get an opportunity just to speak to the NFL commissioner?
Yeah, so what was your question?
My question was just, who's your favorite football team and why isn't it the Miami Dolphins? So I couldn't think of anything else.
Perfect.
But
I like it.
Yeah. Well, last week we actually had on Al Riveron, who's the head of officiating.
Yep.
And he went through and did some replays with us, and it was a really, really cool experience because he said, here's the reason why, he's like, how many of you think this is a fumble? How many of you think that this is a good play? And he went through different plays throughout the season, and they said, and this is really interesting, how long do you think it takes for a replay to take place? When they have to do a replay and it goes up to the booth,
right.
How long do you think that takes place? How long do you think that process lasts on average?
A minute?
Seconds.
So they said their average for this season was 38 seconds to have a decision for a replay, an instant replay, which I thought was like, that's cool. Cause I'm like, well, why do they always go to commercial? And he said, it's not designed that way. It just so happens that's what the networks want to do. He said, but at average, it's a 38-second turnaround time. So that was really cool. We got a chance to talk to the guy who does scheduling as well. That was really cool. And our first one was Chris Carter. He got a chance to talk to us as well. So all these experiences, that we've been able to do, all 32 of us.
How does it feel to be the second best wide receiver in Vikings history?
That was not one of our questions.
That should have been your question. You did not rock the boat enough. I absolutely would have asked that question. No, I wouldn't.
Well,
I'm not a dick.
We had to watch our P's and Q's because everybody was watching us. So
nice. Well, I really hope that you win, and if you don't, you're going to have an amazing experience with your daughter at the Super Bowl. Obviously, I'll be cheering for you. You've been fantastic. Thanks so much for coming on, Ian Berger, a.k.a. Big E. If you're not already following on Twitter, what is wrong with you, especially if you're a Dolphins fan?
I got to do this. I got to make my follows.
You got to go out there.
Sir, and I follow everybody back, even if they're weird. They're weird name people or ladies because I always have fun with them.
You should plug your Twitter.
So look at that, Will. You'll actually get a follow back.
Plug your
Ian's
Twitter.
Nice guy.
I mean, you got a lot of fans. What's your Twitter?
Ian693.
Got it.
There you go. I want to thank my co-host, Will Southern. Look at that. I might regret that down the road and bring that title back. But thanks for coming on as always, buddy. And my new producer for the Pigskins and Politics podcast, Anthony.
So I just followed Big E on Twitter. And now I have 17 Dolphins recommendations for follows. What have I just done? What have I just done?
Well, I want to thank everybody for listening. If you want to stick around for the politics chat, we'll drop that in a couple days. I do want to go ahead and mention that we are on Twitter. I mentioned last week, official PP Pod. So that's nice and easy to remember. So you can look us up on Twitter at official PPOD. We're also on YouTube, as I mentioned. So this will be broadcast on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. I even have a TikTok now. So we're gonna stay up to date with the kids.
Looks like the hot news. The hot news that'll Go ahead.
I'm following Juju for inspiration. So whatever Juju Smith-Schuster does, I think I should do on TikTok.
I think next week we're going to be talking about McDaniels, if I'm reading Twitter right now.
For the Eagles?
Yeah.
Are you breaking some?
It just
news?
seems it from the Twitter. I don't know. Probably what we're
stick
talking
around
about.
for next week. Oh yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
What a badass name! Bieniemy. Yes. That sounds so wicked. Or you could be I'm Dan Campbell. That's the most NFL white guy name you could ever imagine. You know what I mean? If you just pictured an NFL head coach, his name would be Dan Campbell, and he was a former fullback for the Dolphins in the 70s. You know what I mean?
Stick around next week for the head coach name analysis.
Hey, you know what Big E will appreciate? Have you ever been to the Canton, by the way? If you're a football fan, and as we all know you are, experience of a lifetime. I was this close to Larry Zonka's cleats, his actual cleats. It's, I don't know what else it would be, but you know what I mean? Just the stuff that they had. They had the pin that signed the merger to create the league. They had Matt Ryan is this wide, bro. He must be forever tall. He's I don't think my thigh could fit in Matt Ryan's jersey. My Tim Tebow medium jersey, I don't know how small Matt Ryan is, but he wears probably a women's teens jersey. It's the smallest thing I've ever seen. But it's so cool. If anybody gets a chance and you get lost on your way to a good city and you find yourself in Canton, Ohio, for sure go by there. If you ever go to a Browns game, It's right next to the stadium, relatively. That's where they have it. Yep. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is up that way, which is really cool. But that was probably the cool. They have a hologram of like Tom Landry giving you like one of his pregame speeches. It's awesome. Like if you're a football fan, it is the best.
Let's have a separate Hall of Fame episide. I'm gonna for the third time try to wrap this up. Shut up, Will.
All right. We should go stream live from the Hall of Fame. How awesome would that be?
I love it. Podcast goals. We're going to wrap the episode up. I promised Big E we'd try to keep it to an hour. We're close to 2 at this point, as we are tend to do. So thank you for all that are listening. Please make sure to subscribe anywhere you find your podcast, but also on YouTube, since we're now putting this video up, which we may regret down the road. Reach out to us on social media. Enjoy the games this weekend.